It's it's always a real treat to be here. I kind of feel like I'm coming home every time I come back. So I thank you for that. I thank you for the invitation. Thanks, Natalie. When Natalie told me what your theme was for the month, courage, my mind immediately went to my favorite movie of all time, The Wizard of Oz. And I thought about the Cowardly Lion. And I thought, oh my gosh, there would be so much there to talk about courage and lack thereof. But when I got to thinking about the entire cast of characters, I realized that all of them had some kind of courage to some degree. But I want you to think about the start of the movie. Dorothy is barreling into the farmyard because Miss Gulch is coming, because Miss Gulch is going to take Toto and she's going to have him put down because he supposedly bit her again. And Dorothy is frantic. She's beside herself. But the bad thing is there's a storm coming too. So Auntie Em and Uncle Henry and all of the farm hands are busy getting the farm ready to endure the storm, and no one has time for Dorothy. So she's at first even more frantic, more scared that no one's there to help her, and then she's angry. And she decides these people don't care about me. I got nothing here. Toto and I are going to take off. We're going to leave home. So they do. And they don't get very far before the twister comes and catches them up, and they get pulled out of the middle of nowhere in Kansas and plunked down into the middle of the land of Oz. Well, it doesn't take Dorothy long to realize that that home was a really good place, and she doesn't know how to get back there. And the Munchkins and the helpful people in the land of Oz say to her, we're really sorry, we don't know what to do. The only one that's going to be able to help you is the great and powerful wizard. So she has to set off to the Emerald City to see the great and powerful wizard who can help her get back home. And she gathers herself a little contingent of fellow travelers, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, all of whom think they need something from the wizard as well. And they start on the journey down the Yellow Brick Road. Let's talk about Dorothy and courage first. Dorothy has the courage to leave the comfort and the knownness when she doesn't think she fits there anymore, to go to the unknown. I think we've all done that. Sometimes we're in a relationship where we realize we don't fit anymore. Sometimes you might be in a great job that everybody else thinks this is like a dream job, and you're like, nah, it's not right for me anymore. My own personal story is that you heard Natalie say I've got a whole great big bunch of Catholic education. I worked for the Catholic Church for a long time. And then one day I realized that I didn't quite believe what I was teaching anymore. And it got to be a matter of my own personal integrity. I couldn't say one thing and believe something different. It takes courage to leave where you are, to go off to somewhere that you don't know where you're going, but you know that you can't stay where you are. When I left the church, few people told me I was going to go to hell. A few people told me they were praying for my soul. But the hard part was that my community, those people that I saw every day, that I loved and lived and worked with, we just kind of went by the wayside. It takes courage to live with integrity. How about that Scarecrow? That guy had great courage because he was able to admit that he didn't know what he didn't know. Think about it. Isn't it hard to be able to say, I don't know. I don't know about that. I wonder what our world would look like if our leaders, ourselves, because we've given the leaders some power in decision making, what if 50 years ago, when climate change first came on the horizon, what if people were able to say, Gosh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'm going to find out about that. I'm going to listen to people who know how to study these kinds of things. I'm going to let them help me inform an opinion instead of spouting conspiracy theories and parroting talking heads and this is a hoax or whatever. What would our world look like if we had some informed opinion, educated ourselves about things like immigration, instead of saying, oh, they're going to take our jobs? What if we learned about, first of all, the lives of the people who are coming to us? What if we sat and looked at what contributions people who have come here from other countries have made to us? What if we were able to say, you know what, I don't know about that, but I'm going to learn. It takes great courage to admit that we don't know what we don't know. How about that cowardly lion, the guy I thought I was going to be talking about? You know, I wonder about him. I wonder how he got that identity. How did he get that name, Cowardly Lion? Started thinking about him, and I'm going to admit, I don't know what I don't know about Habitat of Lions. So this might be totally made up. But I'm thinking about that lion, and I'm picturing him as a cute little lion cub. And he's out rolling around in the savannah or whatever he's rolling around with. What if he kind of rolled up against a snake or a spider or who knows what that startled him? And what if he did a kind of a little cowardly, ah! And what if there's some other little lion cubs watching what's going on? And they're deciding they can think, oh, you scaredy cat. You scaredy cat. And what if he listens to them? What if he believes those outside voices? And what if he lets in some own negative self-talk? How many times do we talk to ourselves in that way? And what if he starts letting those voices inform who he is? Way deep down inside, he knows he's got courage, but he's hearing everybody, including himself, say, no, you don't. And as we watch him through that journey, when he went with Dorothy to the wizard, he stood up to the wicked witch. He showed great courage. He just didn't know that he did. It takes courage to be able to tune out all the stuff that tells us we're something that we know we're not, so that we can live our authentic selves. Now, how about the Tin Man? I think he might have the most courage of all, because he allows himself to feel the pain of others, to not be afraid of others' hurts. You know, he's got to carry around that oil can, right? Because every time he encounters someone who's got something not so good in their lives, cries, and then he rusts himself shut. It takes great courage to be able to look at pain. It takes great courage to live with a broken heart. How many of you are human? By the time we get to this age and stage, we have had heartbreak. That's part of the condition of being human. And we oftentimes have no control over what breaks our hearts. It can come out of the blue. It can be a long time coming. We can see it coming at us, whatever. But when an event breaks our hearts, I believe that we do have control over how we respond to that event. And I think there's two paths we can go down. The first one comes, catastrophe happens. This heart is broken into a million pieces. And I scoop up those pieces and I cram them together and I stick them back in here and I build a wall. I put this big cage around my heart because nothing is going to break it ever again. I am a hurt person and I hurt people because the lens that I'm looking at while I'm trying to protect this broken up old heart is a lens often of scarcity, fear, anger, desire for retribution, whatever it is. And then my actions are compelled by that lens that I'm looking at. And I don't even know that I'm hurting other people many times because I can't even attend to my own pain. It's walled off there. The other way, the other path that I think we have a choice to go down is a path where, boom, catastrophe happens. All the pieces of my heart, pick them up, and I sit with them. And I sit with them. This is a process. This is not good morning, and I'm going to sit, and by good evening, I'm going to be great again. This is a process. But when I am willing to look at my own pain, to not deny it, to just own that that's what it is, I believe that there's a transformation that can occur. And that does occur with enough intention and enough time that pain gets transformed into something that we call compassion. The ability, compassion, I took some Latin back in my Catholic days. Compassion comes from the Latin that means to suffer with, the ability to be with someone. And when we know what pain feels like, we don't want anyone else to have to go through that. It doesn't have to be the same kind of pain, the same experience, but I think, then look through a lens of compassion, a heart broken open. It's not ever fixed, but it's open. All those kinds of courage are modeled in the characters. And you know what? They get to Oz. And you remember, Oz turns out to be a big old fraud. He can't give them anything, but he can give them something huge. He gave them the ability to recognize that what they were looking for was already right there. Dorothy had on those ruby slippers. She could click her heels 3 times and say, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home." And she could go back home. And I think also in her courage was that recognition that what she left was really where she belonged. And I think it takes great courage to go back to somewhere that you've been. Maybe there's relationships to repair. Maybe there's some prodigal sonness about it. But she had that great courage, but she also had the ability to go back home. The Scarecrow, he wanted the brain. Do you remember what the wizard gave him? Yes, exactly, a diploma. And he starts spouting off some e pluribus unum, whatever stuff. And he recognized that he had a brain, he had knowledge, he had wisdom. And the biggest part of that was the ability to say, I don't know what I don't know. The lion, I'm not even calling him cowardly anymore. The lion, remember what he got? And the medal said courage on it. And he got that pinned to himself and he went, roar. It was in there all the time. Someone had to point it out to him. Oh, and the Tin Man. Remember what he got? But I think it was a clock, right? It tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Yeah. And I think that he said the most profound line in that whole show, and I still cry every time I watch the show. He looked over at Dorothy, and he knew that she was going home, and they likely would not ever see her again. And he said, I know I have a heart because it's breaking. Broken open. Courage. Now, I know that we all have those kinds of courage within us. We have the courage to live with integrity. It's hard. It's hard. But we have that courage. We have the courage to admit that we don't know what we don't know. We have the courage to let those voices behind, to live with authenticity. And most of all, most importantly, we have the courage to live with hearts broken and open. But I don't think we can do that by ourselves. Dorothy surely couldn't, neither could all the characters that were with her. I think we need a community around us so that when I forget that I can live with integrity, or when I forget that I don't need to be overwhelmed by pain, or when I forget that I'm just being a jackass and hey, come on, you know, let's be the person you were called to be. Somebody can call me on it. And I think that is the power of you in this community. I think it's the power of you and your other tribes that I always call them tribes. I don't know. I got my little tribes that I gather around me. But I think it is up to us to make sure that we call forth courageous living. Because I don't know about you, but the world that we live in right now, my perception of it is that it's a very scary place. And there's so much that's broken and it can be really, really overwhelming. But in that courage, all those different kinds, I think there's also the courage to hope. And when we have courage to hope, we have courage to live, to move forward and do whatever we can and wherever we are to make life just a little bit better. So I am grateful, always grateful to be here. But I am grateful that somehow we're all on that yellow brick road together, calling forth the courage in each other when we need to recognize it again. Thank you.